Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Bryce
This
Vine.
is Dexter from The
This
Offspring.
is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick
This
Marotta.
is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Listen up, everybody. This is John J.R. Robinson, and we are listening to the Break It Down Show. Please enjoy.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
John Robinson is a doting grandfather, a devoted father, a somewhat rabid Chiefs fan.
Oh, jeez.
And it happens to be the most recorded drummer in the world. So, or in the known universe, as far as we can see it.
And I guess technically even the unknown universe.
And even the unknown universe. And we don't say that lightly because we love Hal Blaine. But we are sitting around the bar because that's what we do.
That's right.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Hey, welcome on this beautiful, cool Friday, July weekend. And, you know, this is the first day I've fired up the air conditioning, so we are in one hell of a heat wave. But welcome, all three of you guys. And,
this is fantastic.
It's good to have you in my home.
Yeah, we got Niko, flying co-pilot. You know, I brought him because he has a fascination with vinyl, and I figured that you two would share that fascination and enjoy it. Are you still doing Vinyl Night?
I stopped doing the radio show because of business reasons. And that's all I can kind of say.
Sure.
Doggone business reasons, man.
I know how hard it is to do a radio show, financially, finding sponsors. I think my concept was really good. And I got about 32 interviews out.
It was fantastic.
And it was fun. I got people to say things they would have never said before.
Yeah.
And it's fun, you know, like now I'm on the other side of the glass with you guys.
Yeah.
I was on the other side of the glass with these guys. And
I finally got to figure out how to pronounce Bruce Swedien.
Yeah, Bruce Swedien. Hey, or as Quincy calls him, Svensk.
We also learned how to say Neil Peart.
Yeah, Peart.
Because of sitting on this side of the thing. We had another drummer on, and he's like, no, you got to say Peart. And he was the guy that he had to know. That was his thing.
It's not Pert.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So we've corrected ourselves and got straight.
That's a shampoo. But we're wandering around this place, and this is a great house. You walk in, and the first thing you see is just drums, far as you can look, and a red velvet rope. And then if your sight line wanders up, there's just a row of gold and platinum awards all the way around this place. And some of the great records that you played on by the Brothers Johnson, David Lee Roth, Rufus and Shaka Khan, David Sanborn.
Is the whole show going to be you doing the list? Because you could.
I know, I could just keep going. We were looking at Pandora, and we thought there should be a channel here called Shit John Robinson Played On.
Well, you know, ironically, I listen to Pandora every afternoon before I fire up the vinyl. Because, you got to have that digital, that 0 and 1. It needs to touch you to get you back into analog. And Pandora is happening. So I've tried to put my channel in there, and it just doesn't do it.
Huh.
So what I do is I find the artists, George Benson channel or whatever channel.
Yeah.
And but then they start veering off. I mean, I'll listen to Coleman Hawkins, and all of a sudden then it'll veer right into a Rufus Shaka tune. I go, there's something weird about Pandora when they do that. But
the devices nowadays are all listening to you all the time, and the applications are tracking what you like and what you go back to and really crafting your experience so that you get all these things that you like. The downside is you don't get as much opportunity to discover new things. And this was one of the real joys about Vinyl Night, was the opportunity to hear guys talk about the things they had done and reach back and go seek those things out and really find some gems that you probably would otherwise have missed.
Right.
Or that had faded away into time. So, yeah, it's a great concept. What do we do to keep it alive?
Well, I probably should go to another station.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I bet Spotify would handle that.
And I would need somebody to, I'm so busy at this particular point in my life that, I'll be honest, it took me 3 to 4 days to research one person.
Sure.
Like when, starting out with Swedien out of the box, and Bill Putnam and then, dealing with Dean Parks. and realizing of this band called Blood Rock out of Fort Worth, Texas. Nobody knew that he was in this rock scenario, you know. Nobody knew he played lead alto in the 1 O'Clock Lab Band. So for me, and I've talked to other hosts that I go, well, how do you deal with it? He goes, well, I don't research anything. I just wing it. And I can understand that, but I was trying to bring something else to the table.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that, I mean, I own the concept, and it's not to say that this won't come back at some particular point, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, radio is I mean, one of my idols is Tim Conway Jr. This guy is so friggin' cool. And he's friends of Billy Sherwood, really close. And I've never met Tim, but just how his you know, I would actually listen to his show and then pattern a concept within my divisi, my expertise.
We know a lot of people that do that kind of thing. There's a guy who does a podcast called Dissect, and he takes an album, you know, of contemporary music like Kanye or someone like that, and not just track by track, but lyric by lyric, sample by sample, he breaks it down, and it takes him a lot of time to do that. But he follows a pattern of a guy named Dr. Bob Greenberg, who follows a pattern of another guy.
Right.
You know, so there's this legacy, and that's what we do, right? We take, like, that's how I want to structure it. I'm going to bring some of me in.
I like how this works.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so when we apply that type of approach, it's really just us being human and mimicking the things that we... And so it all comes down. So who did John Robinson's drumming trickle from? Who were you listening to as a kid?
My mom used to play big band records.
Yeah.
You know, I started out playing piano when I was 5, and my dad was very much a tyrant about that. And I did
About playing or about...
Playing
and
practicing.
Yeah.
And I did not like piano. And... I mean, I loved the instrument. And I still to this day love the instrument.
Yeah.
But at that same time, and even before that, my mom would sit me down and talk about the word swing and listen to Gene Krupa, who was the rock drummer of his time. He was the pop god of his time. He was the first drummer to live on the Upper East Side of New York.
Right.
You know, so he was making dough.
Yeah.
You know,
He had arrived.
Compared to Buddy Rich, who was a younger fella, who his parents threw him into vaudeville.
Yeah.
And, you know, the boy wonder concept. So Buddy was used to this, probably working for the dough and the agents. And get out there, little, you know, get your ass out there and play.
Right.
You know, and
Still
then
living in the Bowery.
Yeah, that's right. And then, you know, Zooty Singleton and Louis Johnson and just some old jazz drummers. You know, and a lot of people... They take drums for granted today. Where are we at here? We're 100 years later, approximately, of drum set. And in the beginning of drums, in the speakeasies, they weren't even allowed. Drummers weren't even allowed with their instruments into a bar.
Yeah,
it was too raucous. It would cause women to dance funny. We didn't sell alcohol. If we sell beer and wine, maybe that's okay. But, you know, maybe Mr. Banjo was the cat.
Yeah.
And finally drummers got in. And look what it did.
Uh-huh. Look at us now.
Look at us go. That little ever-ready bunny. Doosh, 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 doosh.
When you were coming up in Iowa, who was the kid ahead of you that you're like, man, I'll never be like, you know, Ricky Brown. That guy is so good.
Coming from Creston, Iowa, I had older drummers. You know, when I got in the jazz band in junior high, there was always some older guy.
Yeah.
And he could read. And my reading was learning how to read. I was a great reader and vocals because I sang in church and I could read piano. But to then transfer that into a big band chart was not easy.
Right.
And that was like 7th grade. And mind you, in my day, it was 3 years of junior high, 3 years of high school.
Yeah.
Which I still think is better.
Well, so do we, because we lived through that too. No, you didn't, huh?
No, I did 3 and 4.
But there was a guy, who was his name? Don Foley, and he wasn't a rock drummer. He was just a cat that could play percussion and read really hip drum parts. And I think he was maybe a farmer. I don't know. And
you're not still in touch with this guy?
No.
Yeah.
But I was the guy who came in and I guess. You know, I brought magic to the party.
You unseated him.
Well, he moved on, and the band directors wanted to play with me. So I ended up actually joining their band.
Whoa.
The teachers.
Yeah.
And that's where I really got a lot of education about song structure, melodies, how to play different grooves, how to comp, how to solo.
Yeah.
And there was really, and I'm very blessed, there was really nobody above me in my area. My first music camp was in 1969 at Northwest Missouri State. And I went down there, and I brought my drums. I think I had just gotten my white Marine Pearl Ludwigs.
Oh, yeah.
From Hospies in Omaha. And, I was working, so I could actually afford my own stuff. And, I bought my first car, and my dad never had to supplement it.
So you never had a regular, like, pushing a broom kind of job?
Once.
Okay.
My sophomore year, I helped build my father's house. So, he had a crew, and basically threw the white, what do you call
resin?
my hands?
Oh.
My baby hands,
Yeah.
white boys, son, on the construction crew.
Uh-huh.
So, but I did a lot of shit. I learned how to.
He wanted to harden you up a little bit.
He did.
Yeah.
He did, and especially the one day I smashed that left thumb 3 times in a row, and was gigging.
Same day.
Same day. What a effing idiot.
Yeah.
And but blah blah. I used to sell stereos,
Yeah.
so I would sell stuff within my wheelhouse. But I was always gigging. I turned pro when I was 10, and I started actually making money consistently when I was 12. I started teaching when I was 12.
Wow.
So I had about 8 or 9 students when I was 12 to 13 years old, and 2 of them were a 27 and a 29-year-old female, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I go, what
awesome.
What do you really want to learn?
There's an ulterior motive.
There was, but I was 12.
Yeah.
So that was another story.
That's
but
a little bit creepy.
it was a little bit creepy.
So they hung around, and they were students of yours for about 6.5 years, and then what happened?
Yeah.
So
you can drive my... No.
this is all happening in Iowa, where there
Iowa.
is not a preponderance of. It's not like there is anywhere you can go. When you live in New York, you can wander into a teacher,
Right.
and go, "Man, I really dig the way you play. Can you help me out?" Not a lot of opportunity for that in Iowa, so you really had to seek it out.
Right, and the best teacher at that point was a guy named Jim Coffin.
Right.
And Jim
How
Coffin...
far away was Jim Coffin?
Way north. He was, if I'm 40 miles north of the, 40, 50 miles north of the Missouri border, he was up in the University of Northern Iowa, which is probably 250 miles. And,
Oddly enough, I've been to the University of Northern Iowa.
it was a badass
In
big band
Waterloo.
school. It's Iowa Falls.
Is
Isn't
that
it?
Iowa Falls?
I think so.
Okay, I was visiting Waterloo.
Waterloo is very close to
But we went to the
Marshalltown.
University of Northern Iowa because Ragbri was coming through town.
Absolutely.
And we wanted to go see Blues Traveler. They were playing at the Unidome.
Nice.
So, but he's all the way up there, and that's...
Right, and I told my dad, I had just been studying with a guy named Lionel Foley, who graduated from the University of Chicago as a percussion major with a master's, and he was the one that started me on rudiments.
That's legitimate.
And in my day, how many rudiments do you think there were?
Well, let's see. That day was in the late 60s.
This would be early 60s.
Early 60s. How many rudiments were there in the early 60s? Not the same number that there are now?
No, 26.
We've been working...
Now there's more.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, that's my point, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But, he can't teach me drum set. I was teaching myself drum set through vinyl, listening, buying a record at Woolworths, and they go, Mr. Robinson, your record is in.
So you
Run
had
up
to
and on
go
your
to-
bike and get your record.
Yeah, but not only were you having to buy records at Woolworths, but you were having to choose records for Woolworths to reach out and get you.
Yeah, I don't know how there must have been some sort of a brochure.
Yeah, okay.
And it must have been more than Woolworths. There had to have been other things.
But it's not like they were stocking all the stuff that you were after.
Well, rock and roll was really starting to light on fire after the Beatles. And I went crazy. My sister went nuts for the Beatles, but I was like, well, I want Dave Clark 5. It's a drummer's band.
Yeah.
So I have, and in that collection, I have all the Beatles records. Well, not all, most of them, and all Dave Clark 5's records.
All right.
Yeah.
Original. And I went and saw Dave Clark 5 in 1965 at Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Des Moines. And it was fantastic. It was just, you're 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Blown away.
And but so you find your niche, and you're looking. I go, wow, I'm really into Cream. So we had a Cream band when I was 12. So
Of course you did.
Come on.
Did you have a big fro?
I did, no. It was like more of a, you get in trouble if you had long hair when you were 12.
Yeah.
So what do you do with a Cream band when you're 12 and you're in?
You play in the summers.
Yeah.
Try to find gigs to play. And there were places to play. They were in the Battle of the Bands were every summer.
Sure.
It was kind of a cool thing. And I'll be honest, how many musicians, let's just say loosely that word, not good musicians, today compared to 1966? I mean, it has to have multiplied times 1,000.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or more. And when I grew up, there weren't that many guys that were learning rock. I remember when I was even younger, and
rock and roll was an art form, was in its infancy anyway.
That's right. It was all new, and everybody was trying something. I remember we heard about this high school rock band, and the drummer had an 18-inch floor tom. Oh. And I went, oh my God, I need to go see it. I've never seen an 18-inch floor tom before.
Yeah.
So we go find the guy, and the guy was a short dude, and I go, this floor tom looks just enormous around you. It was some Ludwig thing, and I go, can I hit it? It's like, boom. I go, oh, this is really cool. Just the passion.
Yeah.
When my first bass drum is still sitting out there, that 1940 Ludwig, which took a while to get back from X1. But I remember getting like the second Ludwig set, which is a '66 Champagne, and having enough money to change the heads, and then you open the shells up and smell the shells, and just in there trying to learn how to do a drum head, and just all this passion.
Yeah.
That was part of.
Those were the days.
Well, and hopefully in my mid to approaching elder days, the passion is still there, and it is.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that you're in the midst of the autumn of your life. I mean, I think you have many, many years to continue to play and to give us great music, but you have plenty of experience now, and you live a different life as a drummer than a lot of guys. You live the life that a guy who's paid years and years of dues gets to live. I mean, when you're on the road with Barbra Streisand, you're not staying at Motel 6s.
No, but we're not staying at her hotel either.
Yeah,
no, that's true.
If only.
But, those days, and I say those days because they're gone from the Streisand camp, they kind of gave up on the orchestra, which to me is like Frank singing with a duo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You gotta put Barbra Streisand in front of a 65-piece orchestra, or it doesn't work. End of story. Yeah. And they had me playing because I was more of a rock guy who swung, and we're playing huge places, so they wanted that
big sound.
That big sound. Yeah. But you're right. During the really heyday of that, and we started out at 93 with her, and went up to 013.
Okay.
There were some serious hotels.
That's a good run.
Holy mackerel!
I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to go to Israel with her.
Wow.
Which was fantastic. Places where you don't know. Hey, where are we going? Oh, we're going to go over to Israel.
Yeah.
It's like that places where we don't normally go.
Yeah.
And I got to see all sorts of just really cool things. And now I'm with David Foster. And I've been with David for almost equally as long. I mean, I've been working with him since 81 in the studios. But we started our
What was the first record you did with David Foster?
Runaway, Bill Champlin.
Wow.
Jeff and I shared it.
Huh.
And we did it at Sunset Sound in the back in the Zeppelin room.
Wow.
1981.
How many records did you and Jeff share?
A bunch.
Yeah.
He was such a nice cat, and he had no problem with me coming into town. Matter of fact, I came into town in May of 1978 with Rufus, and we were signed to Mark Hartley and Larry Fitzgerald, and Toto hadn't been signed yet. But Jeff was still working. He was working with Cher. And a couple of, weeks into my...
As for our listeners, our uninitiated listeners, we're talking about Jeff Porcaro.
Yes. And Jeff was doing a live gig at the Hollywood Bowl with Cher. And me personally, she didn't really float my boat with my musical taste. even though I know that there's this huge history with Dean Parks being MD for Cher's live TV show, and the Picaro guys and everybody in Toto was in the band, and it was really this cool, tight-knit situation in the 70s. But I got a call from Jeff, and Jeff goes, man, I got a problem. Can you take my gig over? And I was still kind of loyal to the Rufus guys and trying to stay under the radar in 1978. And I decided, I said no. And, it's that kind of thing where you go in, you hear what he's playing, you read the stuff, and you nail it and get out.
Yeah.
And I was like,
you weren't into it.
not at that particular month
Yeah.
of time. So, but he was always gracious with me, and we did a lot of stuff together. Then, ironically, later, they got signed to Fitzgerald Hartley. The same management, so they had both us.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah. Well, you and I met originally at a NAMM show in like 1989.
Damn.
The first time I met you. And that was also the first time I met Jeff Porcaro.
Wow.
And he was terrific. I can't even remember what he was doing. He was playing something for Pearl.
Right.
And it was back when the booths at the NAMM show had a booth set up.
Sweatbox.
Playing in the sweatbox. And, man, this booth was probably the size of a single shipping container.
Uh-huh.
And there were probably 150 of us crammed in there because we wanted to watch what was going on and what Jeff was doing. And then afterwards, we just stayed in there sweating, and he talked to everybody. And he was just, it was one of those experiences where I knew I always loved his playing. I loved his playing with Boz Scaggs and everybody else. And then after that, I just thought, man, I couldn't have imagined. I was a kid. I was right out of high school. And I was just thinking, I couldn't imagine him to have been a nicer guy. So to hear that you guys got on like a house on fire is not surprising. But what is surprising is how many artists chose his playing and also chose your playing. And so that really kind of shows that there is an overlap in feel there that somebody's looking for.
Definitely.
That you guys both embodied.
Yeah, that's a great analogy of that. And I've not really heard it put that way before, but it makes total sense. And yeah, during that heyday of the 80s, and then, the 90s started breaking down, I think. But that heyday, producers, generally there'd be one producer. But and certain artists were then multiplying with other producers.
Yeah.
But the one producer might like Jeff better than me for certain things, and might like me better than Jeff for certain things.
Right.
So it split up like that, and it was an honor. It was, it's like, man, when I still lived, left Iowa and moved to Boston, and when, I'm a Berkeley guy, and I targeted X amount of drummers. I mean, literally, militarily. I go, I'm listening to what you're doing, and I kind of like the position of what you're doing as far as politically and what's going on. I'm not going to mention that list right now, but...
Will you mention it after we turn the mics off?
Yeah, it's easy.
Yeah.
And some were...
Sorry, everybody.
Some were... Well, I mean, I can tell you this. Steve Gadd was always an idol to everyone.
Sure. Because
Steve was kind of there in that transitional stage from bebop into pop.
Yeah.
And my teacher, Ed Sof, was at that same exact point of time. However, he was choosing bebop over pop. And I always felt it because Ed did move to New Haven with his wife and was thinking about becoming a studio drummer.
Yeah.
And he chose not to do that. And it was very interesting, whereas Steve did choose to do that.
And this is the political positioning you're talking about.
That's some of it.
Making a professional choice.
But then looking at, let's say, a drummer X is his name, and what he's contributed into recording in Los Angeles in the late 70s and early 80s of this particular genre, and knowing that I could do that.
Yeah.
And, ironically, I ended up meeting Quincy Jones, which did change my life.
Sure.
So,
it changed many of our lives, too, because now all those grooves that have cemented themselves into our musical lexicon, it's absolutely relatable that it could change your life because it changed culture, the culture of music.
It did. And, I'm sorry that Papa Joe Jackson passed away last week.
Yeah.
But, I saw that transition from the Jacksons and where Michael got extracted out and pulled out of Motown and put on Epic. And a lot of people were...
You had a first
I was
front row seat.
Right here, right by him all the time. And I sympathized for the Jacksons because they lost their lead vocalist.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was really happy that Michael got to explore.
Yeah.
And which did change the world.
Oh, yeah. I want to go back to Steve Gadd. I definitely don't want to leave this transitional point in your career and in music history with Michael Jackson, but I want to go back to Steve Gadd because something popped into my head. I have been a martial artist for many years, and I study with a guy named Doug Meeks. And the thing about Doug Meeks is, I think, similar with Steve Gadd, if you'll indulge me. I remember when I was fresh into it, I started training when Niko was an embryo. So I was already an adult. And as I began to take training seriously, I really thought I had a pretty good grasp of the curriculum, or at least I could see down the field at what I was going to become. And when I was an orange belt, I would spar with Doug Meeks. He's a grandmaster and a great guy and a beautiful human being. But we would spar, and I was an orange belt, and I would leave thinking, ooh, I almost had his ass. Boy, I was right there. And no matter how much better I got, and what new thing I learned, and how I progressed, whenever I got to work with him, I almost had him.
Yep.
I've never almost had him. But he made me always feel like I was right there. I just need to get this just a little bit further, and I'm going to get – and he just dragged me along, and the better I got, the better he got.
That's right.
In the ring with me. And I feel that way about Steve Gadd's playing because you can reach to a number of different recordings that he's made, and I promise I'm going somewhere with this, and think, man, I know that feel. I can master that. I can get there. And I think that that's really one of the things about your playing that has made you not only sought after as a session player, but for drummers who listen to other drummers. So many of us listen to you and go, boy, I can almost get there. And you have us strung along like, ooh, I can almost play that. And I think that you've made a career out of that.
It's not intentional.
Well, okay.
Yeah. Let me come up with the intro to Higher Love and the intro to Rock Review, and
Right.
You guys have fun.
Yeah. Okay, there's that.
Or let's play Flat-Footed.
Yeah. Well, okay. But when you listen to a record like, let's say, Just a Gigolo is, it's a simple groove. All the stuff that you're doing that make that groove special are buried in the subtleties.
Yeah.
And for a young player, if he wants to learn to swing a little bit, he can put that on and go, okay, I can follow along with this. It's not until you've played it for years and you really start to get into it and you really start to expand your own playing and the subtleties that you start to realize, I'm not playing this shit right at all.
Right.
And I think that's the magical thing about your grooves, Jeff's grooves, Steve Gadd, is that they serve our bass nature. They have a backbeat. They really get us to feel what we're feeling. And then when you dig deep, deep in the weeds, then you find the stuff.
Right.
But until then, they're always approachable. If I listen to Billy Cobham and I'm a young drummer, I might go, I need to give this instrument up.
Well, he is definitely, by the way, I'm doing a tribute to him on Sunday night radio on another
Okay.
competitive show. But Billy's always been a dear friend, but I have to tell you something. He is probably still to this day the scariest drummer that ever walked this planet.
Yeah.
How so?
I got a football buddy named Jeff, and he's a Broncos fan, and I'm a Chiefs fan, and I always use football analogies, and I said he's the Jerome Bettis of drummers.
Uh-huh.
And
he's a steaming locomotive.
Steve power his ass right through something, and think nothing of it.
Yeah.
I mean, the dexterity thing is a whole other freak. But when I remember just really in love with certain Buddy Rich records. And Buddy Rich records, to me, the best band was Live at the Shea, 1966, that big band record with West Side Story on it. Well, Buddy Rich can play single-stroke rolls better than any drummer ever in the history of the world. But then all of a sudden I started hearing, I got hip to Billy Cobham with a band called, it's a band out of New York on CBS, and I'll think of it in a second. And I go, wow, this is Billy Cobham. And then I finally heard him play single-stroke roll, and I go, this is really, he's like the next thing that's been able to do that. But he's got feel and magic to it. It's not like you're a rudimental drummer. And, I got to see Billy a lot, and he and I become very close friends. But
feel and magic to a single-stroke roll.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I heard him in Iowa driving my car, my 1966 Dodge Charger, and I hear, bop! You deserve a break today. At McDonald's, we do it all for you. Anyway, there's this bop! Phil, I found out it was Billy Cobham doing a jingle.
Wow.
He did a friggin' McDonald's jingle. Okay. Anyway, enough of that.
I do want to say this, though. Your football analogy brings in Jerome Bettis. One of my favorite things about Jerome Bettis, I read a story probably in Sports Illustrated at some point. And when he gets the ball, right, covers up, he's not looking for the hole. He's looking at the legs of his linemen because that tells him where the hole is about to be. And, he only needs
4 yards.
Yeah, and he's going to get half of that by smacking into somebody.
Right.
But if he can get a hole, then he's going to hit the linebacker, and it's going to be 8 to 10 yards. But he's worried about fast, but he's looking for what fast is going to be. Like, oh, that leg is bent that way. Okay, this guy's going to push, and I'm going to. And so, what's the drumming version of that? Because surely there's things where to be fast, it's not just how fast I can swing the stick or whatever. Or
right.
To have the magic. What are those things that you pick up over the years where you can't explain that until you've done 1,000 carries?
Well, that's very interesting. I think my niche in history is I don't want to be like everybody else. I don't want to be anything like these guys. I want to have great time. So what I do is I encompass or employ the time element into whatever then I'm going to output. And, you take a guy like Billy, who's just this technological wizard, he's almost a freak. It's great. But you and I both know if we time align all this stuff, he's playing on top a lot of the times, and that's just part of his deal. Ed Sof, when I interviewed him, and he talked about my time, and he talked about his time, and he goes, man, I'm just a jazz drummer, small group drummer, and a big band drummer that plays on top of the beat. I go, he crushed me by that phrase. I go, you're my fucking idol. Yeah. I always thought you had this great thing, and as I listened to him and listened with Clark Terry and Woody Herman, he is on top of the beat. Yeah. That's the nature of the music.
Huh.
So he's serving the music.
Nature of the music. Yeah. If there's even getting to all the robot, perfectly lined up Daft Punk stuff, there's a nature to the music.
Yeah.
They like the human quality with great time that lines up with their programs. And I think that was the magic of how that worked with me and Nathan and Niall and Paul Jackson.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was one thing. And there was another single that came out by The Weeknd called I Feel It Coming.
Okay.
And then I ended up doing that 2 years later at Henson. And we did a couple of grooves. God knows what they turned into. So one of them was a hit. So,
Let's be hosts for a minute. That Jerome Bettis question was really nice.
Thank you.
I really like the way that worked. That was nice. But I think that if we expand on that into doing a record like Daft Punk, you're talking about inserting the human element to where we like machines. And Stuart Copeland said something about how, all this work that we do as drummers, and it turns out that when you go to a club, what everybody's moving their butt to nowadays is done by a machine. But there is still a human element and a place for that human element. So when you're looking for that buckle in the knee or something, there are things that you can do that are on purpose, and then some things that you're going to do that are just, let me just insert my time, and that is the human element. Is it just that you sit down in the chair and you go with it, or is there anything deliberate about your approach to playing with a record like a Daft Punk record?
That was definitely unique and extremely deliberate, because I was hired. I wasn't hired because I was a robot.
Yeah.
I was hired because I'm a human.
Yeah.
And they had this vision, and it actually turned out that vision, that record was probably one of the hippest records since maybe 1969 or 70 of all records, because just the concept of that. But let's take an opposite of that. So with like David Foster, we'll do corporate events, and I had a Katy Perry gig. I had Steven Tyler. I've been playing with Steven, which is a no-click track. It's friggin' rock and roll.
Yeah.
He'll forget. He'll come in early. He doesn't care. Katy Perry stuff, she comes in, and it's like the police patrol are there, and the band has just nailed her stuff. We have it notated on charts, and we've listened, and we know what to do. And she starts singing, and then anyway, it came to concert time. It sounds just like the record with us plugged into it. So I'm not like laying back or any sort of purpose thing. I'm playing exactly with the machines. With my human element, though, which does add something, because when I hit the snare drum, even if it is technically straight up and down, not laid back, it's going to sound better than whatever the hell machine they programmed.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's just a human attack on an acoustic instrument.
What's the something? You made this. So what is the something that makes the difference, though? I mean, I get it's a human attack, but can you put your hands on it and explain it to a layman even better? Because I understand that, and I can hear it, but I can't understand how or why, like what you bring if you're playing the same thing. Is it where you hit on the drum, or
could be?
Yeah, I mean the variable comes in the fact that you're going to be a degree different or 2 degrees different, or even if you're right on time, the way that the drum rings responding to the human being is going to be a percentage difference.
That's right.
And that's all the difference in the world.
And by what groove I put on X song, I can theoretically control the entire song with my groove.
Yeah.
So the question is, do you take over or do you use your musicality? And you have to use your musicality. Unless it's that kind of song where they want you to take over.
Yeah.
And those are all live situations.
Sure, you get one of those a night where everybody wants you to do your thing, and then you get a solo in the middle of it. And then
I don't with David. No, I get no solos. Yeah. It's a very intimate situation, but it's almost like perfect. We have to be perfect, which is fine. Whatever. That's why I formed a new rock band.
So you could be loose somewhere
else. So I don't have to be perfect. The band is called Citizen Gain.
Nice.
And it's with Tara Cacconi on guitar, Dave DeLome on guitar and keys, and Jason Sheff on bass and vocals. And then we, on occasion, are looking at Buck Johnson from Aerosmith.
Okay.
This is the background singer.
Yeah.
Really good singer. He's a Nashville guy.
Okay.
But right now it's just the 4 of us. So we just started writing, and we were working out here. So it's a whole other thing.
That's cool.
We'll see what happens, and
Buck Johnson was in the Hired Gun.
I was in there for about 1/2 second.
Yeah.
That's actually our next interview. After you, we're going to go to Calabasas, and we're going to grab Fran.
Oh, you are you?
Yeah.
I'll say hey.
I will.
It's been quite a day, man. We went from Don
you guys
Randy, and we're here, and then we're going to go give.
You guys are getting everybody.
Yeah.
We're trying.
But I've got on hold. We're playing 5 nights at the Blue Note So that'll be nice with David. Because this whole thing now is turned into an intimate thing. It's just drums, bass, and piano.
Wow.
And Pro Tools and three amazing singers.
Huh.
And I'll plug them. It's Shalea Frazier from Stevie Wonder, Pia Toscano from J-Lo, and Fernando Varilla, who's a Florida guy, Puerto Rican dude, who I work with a lot. Just an amazing singer.
And it's you and David Foster and Nathan.
No Nathan. We have a guy from New York named Charlie Rosen, who has his own big band in New York, and he's the kind of guy. He was a younger Berkeley guy, kind of guy that plays everything. You just kind of want to beat him,
Yeah.
Just stay with the
And he
piano.
plays everything well.
Plays everything pretty damn well. Drums. We'll always be screwing around, and I'll be playing piano, or I'll be playing guitar, or bass, and then somebody will film it.
Yeah, what's the secret musician?
Those are fun videos to watch.
They
Oh,
are,
for sure.
because it's really some simplistic shit,
Yeah.
but fun.
Grooving, though.
Yeah, it's grooving.
What do you wish you were better at in terms of like new musicianship? Like I wish I could just play the bass more. Like that's my secret desire, Or is it something outside of music? Like we had a writer, Krista Vernoff, on, and she writes.
Wait, Nathan did a magic trick. We had
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well,
Yeah.
Nathan was a member of the Magic Castle, Magic Club.
Right. And so Krista's a secret, like her secret passion is to either write comedy, because she writes drama great. She wrote for Grey's Anatomy and all, and she wrote for, what's that, Shameless show.
Oh, yeah.
So, but she's like, but what I want to do is write comedy, but I can't. Like, I'm no good at it. And what I really like to do is, because she sang on like a little ship tour thing, you go around the lake.
Cruise ship.
Yeah, she did one of those kind of things.
Like dinner cruise.
Dinner
Oh.
cruises. Yeah. Yeah.
It gets
But-
better.
That's like
Yeah.
like right below that cruise ship line.
So her and like one of her friends,
Right.
like her mentor in writing, they go every now and then to his house, go in the basement, plug in, and play shitty and play loud, and they love it.
Yeah.
So what's your thing like that?
Well, this year I haven't planted my garden.
Okay.
This is my only year because I just redid my pool and I'm landscaping and doing other stuff, and that kid that's turning 17 in a week is like. That's the last one.
Yeah.
I have two older ones, so
it's
that's
taking up a lot of time.
big. It's hard being a parent, especially if you're a little bit more than a 50% parent. So, but normally I have my garden, and I know that it's not going anywhere, and it really takes up a lot of time.
Yeah.
To get it right and keep the vermin out and that sort of thing. But that's just a hobby. I'm going up and doing a gig coming up here, and I'm going to be driving race cars.
Oh, nice.
All the really hip, really cool cars.
Yeah.
It's going to be some fun. I've never really done that. I've driven a Bugatti Veyron before.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Was
when
it
the,
Steven Tyler's Bugatti Veyron?
No, it was owned by Tommy O'Gara coach. But
the high-end cars, it's a little harder to do, but the car is like one cut below where the car starts to slide, and you're supposed to step on the gas because the car will hook up
right.
and slingshot you. But yeah, until you get used to that, you want to back off,
That's right.
and that's not what the car wants you to do. The car wants you to smash.
I'm going to learn.
Yeah.
By that. And then, back into my wheelhouse, I'm actually working on scoring a film right now. Tom Scott's doing the other part of it. And Nathan's supposed to be doing something, but so far I've already done 8 cues here, and it's called The Bronx Boys. And it's about George Shapiro's life, if you guys remember from Seinfeld,
Sure,
and stuff, and George, and so this movie should be out by September.
Wow,
and that's kind of got me into some doors with scoring, which is I love writing. I compose very well, and I have a song co-written by a girl named Maya Ajuzina called "Gonna Be All Right," and it's in the pinnacle point of the film, and they use the whole song. So it's very good. So we're going to be Academy nominated worthy for this.
Nice.
So you never know.
wouldn't that be funny if you were playing in the Academy Award orchestra and you were up for an Academy Award?
Yeah, wouldn't it? And how would I get from under the stage back
up to the top?
And
Yeah.
you could do it.
I'd have to go look at George Clooney's girlfriend's. Well, never mind.
It's just
yeah.
along the way.
Just
it was
along
right
the
there.
way.
And then would you have to keep working Like play yourself in. You like they'll let you play the maracas or something as you're walking up. Right.
And the producers on the mic going, God damn it! Go on, you're going 5, 4, cut to commercial 3, 2, fuck. That's what they do, and nobody ever hears that shit.
Right.
It's the Oscars. Boy, what a tough gig that is. Woo.
Well, okay, two things. Our friend Derek Jones is the bass player in Ka, which is at the MGM Grand.
Oh, yeah.
And so whenever I go to Vegas, well, he used to live there, but he doesn't anymore. So whenever we go to Vegas, we go catch Derek, and we'll go down. And the way that they do Ka is they have that stage that moves around. So they have to be in a booth 6 stories under the stage.
Damn.
Well, everybody in the band at some point in the show is in the show. So they're in full makeup, and then they have to run up 6 flights of stairs, do their part on the stage, and then run back down. So it can be done.
Crazy.
That's a young man's game. There.
That is a young man's game. But it is fun to be in that mix where the stage manager is barking commands and the MD's barking commands and they're barking at each other, and then you got the guys just who chime in and wisecrack from time to time.
Streisand was like that at certain years. One year my drums were on the 3rd floor.
Yeah.
So that was a bit, you got a 20-minute break, and then you got to get your, it's really not a 20-minute break. It's a 10-minute break because it's 5 to get down and 5 to get back.
Yeah.
And but it was interesting, but not to that degree. So.
They call it crazy audibles in that thing too, because you've got the stage is a member of the cast because it moves. So there's stunts going on. And if there's stunts, someone's gonna twist an arm or something is gonna fail. So they're they're constantly getting cues to do certain things. But everybody's so professional. No one's panicking.
Right.
It's like, hang in 30 seconds, and then you're just like, they all know what to do. And it's amazing that they're able to do that. And the audience doesn't even know that somebody broke their leg or whatever the issue is.
Oof.
Yeah.
Hey,
live.
I asked Rick
live.
I asked Rick
Thousands of
Marotta
shows.
about his reading.
Yes.
I said, can you do that Academy Award gig? And he said, I can read well enough to get fired from that gig.
Oh, it was well stated. There's a Rick Marotta story. Besides my 30 years, I was at Yamaha. We did all those groove nights, and it was really quite exceptional. But, I have a new home with DW for the last 12 years, and it's been great.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that 12 years ago it can be new?
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to John Good lives literally right over there.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, a stone's throw. He's one of my best friends. But we did a commercial for Nike, and it was me, Vinny, Rick Marotta, and Greg Bissonette.
Wow.
And it was, I think, for that wheelchair. It was for the 84 Olympics.
Yeah.
And you guys might remember the commercial. And they had all of us drummers facing each other like that. And Rick, I love Rick, but, there was some, notes put in front of us.
Uh-huh.
And with some odd times.
Oh.
And it was, Rick plowed through.
Yeah.
But it was 4 drummers, which is very cool. It was a very similar concept to what we do with Hans Zimmer, with Superman and Batman versus Superman, where we used a minimum of 9 and a maximum of 16 drummers.
Wow.
Which was very interesting.
That's a lot.
So it's a lot of confusing, where is one?
Yeah.
Yeah. One moves around.
Yeah, well.
But it can't.
There's
weird.
many stories to tell about that, but when you hear the end result, it's great.
Okay. I don't remember that commercial. I would have remembered that commercial had I ever seen it.
Oh, the old Nike commercial.
Yeah. So now we're going to have to
young.
dig it up.
It was 84.
Yeah.
And I think it was I don't know if it was Rick Hansen or the wheelchair guy.
Yeah.
But it was us 4 drummers playing.
Well, it's out there. We'll just look it up on YouTube. Someone had it on a VCR tape somewhere and put it up.
Okay, cool.
Watch it.
We're trying to get Greg Bissonette on the show. And he's very cordial, but he's very busy. So he had yet to say yes.
Oh.
And then we were at the Roland thing.
Right, I couldn't get there. Yeah.
And, like I said, he was really cordial. Yeah, one of these days, guys. And then we were in the hallway, and I had to get out of the way because somebody was coming down the hallway. And I bumped into Greg again, and he was talking to Rick. And Rick said, hey! And he gave me a big hug. And then after that, Greg's tune changed. He was like, all right, we'll see what we can fit in when I come back.
By the way, the guy he had to get out of the way of was Jimmy Jam.
Oh.
Walking down the hallway.
You should have said, dude, I got this friggin' demo, man. It's on cassette.
I'm sure he's
I make
never
dope-ass
heard that.
beats.
Well, that's, competition. Drummers, I think, we all love each other, but we're also competitive.
Yeah, sure.
Well,
because usually there's only one chair. You don't get too many of those gigs
16
where
chairs.
there's 4 drummers.
No, 16 drummers were different. But John Good had his, he has the Church of Monday Night Football. And everybody that knows who John Good is, he is the world's greatest drum designer and is one of the owners of DW Drums. And I've done a lot of pre-work for him with, like, the Stradivarius drums that are out.
Yeah.
My first drum set, which was a spruce demo. It was like he found the spruce and built this set and let me go to town with it before he came out with this anniversary line, the Stradivarius lines. But anyway, we belong to the Church of Monday Night Football. So in football season, every Monday night, if you can, you try to go over to John's house, and there's 40 of us.
Yeah.
And he does this toast and blah, blah. Well, in the summer, his wife Esther has the ice cream social. So she makes like 15 varieties of homemade ice creams.
Oh, my gosh.
For a grand. So
This is just last week?
it was last week,
Yeah.
and there was so many drummers there, and we never see each other.
Yeah.
Ever. And it was, Kunkel was there, and Tony Bronigal, and Biscara. Everybody's just like, so happy to see each other.
Yeah.
It was kind of nice. So
I mean, you have an occupation that typically you have to do, as drummers go, by yourself. There aren't many road gigs that have 2 drummers. There aren't many sessions where there are 2 drummers. No. So as much as drummers have in common, you don't have co-workers too terribly often. As a co-worker who's another drummer.
right.
So it's not like if you're a Finnish carpenter. And
Right.
you got your buddy, and he's a cabinet maker, and you're doing the, base moldings, and he's doing the cabinets. And, hey, we're meeting on another job. So you're more likely to have a coworker like Nathan or like who's
Right.
another instrument. And the drummers in the fraternity don't get to see each other very often.
Right.
So that's cool to have a Monday night football, or especially because Monday night, drummers are often free.
Or Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Or Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Hopefully not more nights than that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm kind of a morning guy. I like working in the morning. It's better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm up early, get my stuff done. I can focus better, But it's good. I was in one band with 2 drummers, the Glenn Fry band.
Oh.
The day the Eagles broke up in 1982, the day I joined Glenn Fry's band.
No kidding.
And the other drummer was
Boy, he had Plan B lined up.
It was lined up, I think, a year in front of that.
Sure.
Because we had already been recording with him.
Yeah.
And
who was the other drummer you were about to say?
Michael Huey. He was a drummer maybe a lot of people won't know. I think he's from Alabama or Atlanta, and he played on Classics 4 songs.
Huh.
So stormy, and back that sun. Anyway, I think he played on some of those tunes. He was just a straight 8th note drummer. Laid it back, had really amazing feel, and then Hawk from Rufus and myself joined Glenn's band, and it turned into this 8 or 9 piece band, and it was very cool.
Yeah.
It was very cool. We toured for a year, and I got to learn an awful lot about rock and roll from Glenn.
Yeah.
And, God bless him. He's not around anymore. But
Yeah.
the 2 drummer thing was very interesting. And, I would then have to double on keys on certain tunes and then sing Henley's parts. And this is not just playing 2 drums.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting.
Yeah, you were hired as a multiple.
That was a utility.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. You were the Kike Hernandez of the band.
Yes.
I crush left-handers, and I play shortstop and center field. Shit, I'll sell hot dogs.
That's exactly, and probably did.
That's Pablo Sandoval nowadays.
That's true.
We were watching a game the other night, and you see Pablo Sandoval. He'll come out and throw a couple pitches.
Yeah.
Is that right?
In the long stretch of the late innings of the first game of a doubleheader, where you're trying to preserve the roster. Yeah, you put him on the mound. He'll throw an inning. He'll get 3 guys out.
See?
And then we need somebody at second. Pablo. And he'll go out and play second. And the other night, it was the beginning of the game, and he brought the lineup out to the umpire for the plate meeting.
He does it all.
Like,
So
man,
he's an assistant coach, too.
this guy really will sell hot dogs if you need him to.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That is funny. Yeah.
So as we're rounding third base in this show, looking long term, since you've now got the bug about scoring film,
Yeah.
is that where you're headed?
You know, this one director, his name is Danny Gold. He's just very passionate about musicians. And
Why is that name familiar? What's Danny Gold done that musicians would love?
well, the last movie, I mean, I'm not totally sure of his track record, but the last movie, it wasn't, I don't think, a huge film. It ended up selling to HBO, but it was called If You're Not in the Obit, Eat Breakfast. And it's Carl Reiner,
Norman Lear,
Mel Brooks,
Yeah.
Benny White, Dick Van Dyke, and then a whole bunch of other cast and characters that are over 85 years old.
Yes.
And some, and you saw it. Mm-hmm. And we were like the band, and me and Nate are in it. And we were in two different scenes. One with Dick Van Dyke and his younger wife, and then another one with Dave Grusin and Alan Bergman. And it's just, that was a kind of a nice, it was more of a documentary film. And then it's led into this one, which is really turning out to be, it doesn't even seem like a documentary film. So Danny is just really passionate about involving musicians. And we've got some other ideas for me, and all I can tell you, if this idea works, it'll be a total step outside of drumming.
Nice.
Wow.
So, and it involves, but it does involve rock and roll.
Okay. Well, you heard it here first, folks.
And I can't tell you anything other than that.
That's plenty. That's plenty. How about for the rest of the year? What projects do you have coming up that we should look forward to?
I've got,
I saw your 2018 book right here. So
yeah, that
you
means I
got
may
stuff.
have to actually address it.
Oh.
Because, you know, sometimes you forget. American Express. Oh. Well, I have you two guys.
Yeah, okay. We're in the book.
Let's see, I've done 2 songs for Michael Bublé that are coming out. Because David Foster is now back with Michael Bublé,
Yeah.
which makes just total sense. Because it reminds me of the days when Michael Jackson left Quincy and went, to me, downhill. You know, so that's that. I have 3 new songs with Rod Stewart.
Okay.
Wow.
That are very much like, I mean, these are kind of songs that we'll be playing in bars. So I approached it that way.
Terrific.
I'm just going to step over the drums and
Terrific.
fall down and play these.
Yeah.
And that
Then what a great place for Rod Stewart to be, too. Because,
I hope
you know,
so. But we're just seeing the contracts, and it's already been out. I did a couple of songs for a chick named Elle King
Oh, sure.
from Nashville,
Yeah.
an RCA artist.
She did a gig on Live from Daryl's House.
Oh, yeah.
You know who she is.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's kind of, you know, she's Rob's daughter.
Okay.
Rob Schneider's daughter. So that is yet to come out, and I know it's coming out. Next week, I am doing a tribute to Hal Blaine
All right.
and a whole bunch of other famous people for a Grammy tribute at the Dolby.
Okay.
So that concert is next Saturday. I got a feeling it'll be filmed. I'm going to be at Bogey's here in Westlake on the 19th with David Garfield. And, you know, he's been threatening to use 3 drummers.
Oh, boy.
What?
I leave for David Foster World Tour, starting out in Vancouver Island, and then working my way back through Milwaukee, Windsor, Chicago, Omaha, back home. August looks like, Nathan and I always call it, when you look at and there's nothing in there.
Uh-huh.
Oh, shit, it's the white pages.
Oh, boy.
But that's okay. And I have my entire football thing programmed here. September is, right now it's light. My October and November is going to be huge. I'm doing a Fernando Varela concert in North Orlando. It's right around Halloween. Then I fly to London for the London Drum Show, which I'm headlining. And then I stay out in England and do some more clinics, and then go up to Ireland and then up home. Again, Chiefs, right? Just kidding. then we go to the Blue Note, and then after that, it's pretty light. So, you know, and that.
So you have
That's
time for
enough.
film scoring.
Well, yeah, as long as. But the thing is, all right, I score something, mix it, you know, send it,
Yeah.
and you got to wait around for them to implant it in their exact position of the film,
Sure.
and then take a breath and then see if it works.
Yeah.
And then if it does work, they'll make notes. Boom, notes come back. And then so it's this cat and mouse game.
Yeah, and you got to go back to it 6 months later, or however long.
Some of my first cue is like that, Yeah. But that's a very interesting thing. I mean, I'm not scoring for a 90-piece orchestra. I don't know how to do that. I mean, it'd be interesting to get into that. But that's I was also teaching at USC for a second when Ndugu passed, and I've been told I'm up for that position, but where I live, I need a helicopter. To
no kidding.
Get to USC.
You need Elon's tunnel. You just have a tunnel right to my house.
Exactly.
So you touched on Michael Jackson in the post-Quincy years, and I would love to have that conversation with you because I have some opinions about what happened to him musically and the evolution and how certain parts of his evolution really stopped.
Right.
And that's not taking anything from Teddy Riley or anybody else, but when you're in the tutelage of Quincy, that was, something that was really, really special. And I think that I would like to have seen some more years of that. Maybe we can touch on that next time.
We can, and real quickly, I thought that Quincy brought out the best in Michael.
Absolutely.
And there was a point, though, when I guess you have to release the artist.
Yeah.
And let's find out if the artist can be an artist. Mm-hmm. So, we'll segue into that at the next time.
Yeah.
And
that'll be a great conversation. We have that to look forward to. Hey, man, thank you so much.
Yeah, really. Thank you.
I mean, I'm very honored to be on the Break It Down show, and we didn't
For
really
your second go-around.
Yeah.
And I know, and we didn't really get into a lot of drumming stuff, which is probably good, but, it's...
That's my job to bring you guys back in. You guys get ready to start talking about
it's easy for us
triplets
to nerd out and stuff, but...
White Soapy drummers going, who the hell's Jerome Bettis?
Yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely.
Well, but it's true that you are a multifaceted guy, and we got to touch on a bunch of other things, and I think that's there's a lot of other great conversation to be had, too. But I will say that, man, I've been heavily influenced by your playing, of course, as a million other drummers have. But I've also been really touched getting to follow you on a personal level on Facebook and just see that, you're enjoying a great life and you still see the fun in it all.
Isn't that what being alive is supposed to be about?
Well, I was hoping so.
I mean, we always have, there's always outside forces that try to break you down, and you just don't let them do it. Yeah. So, for all the drummers out there that are struggling, just stay focused on that, on what you do and what made you excited about your passion of why you got into being a drummer. And don't ever forget that, because that's the wife that won't yell at you. Love you guys.
Thank you, JR.
All right, buddy.